Hi, I'm Frankie Frayne, and I've been making movies since I was a kid. I've made 4 low-budget feature films of varying success, and I've been to film school. Twice. For better or worse, I've developed a science for completing feature-length films on pocket change, and it has a lot to do with the conversations you'll hear on this podcast with teachers, friends, and artists. You don't have to pay $40,000 a year for bad advice. This is Discount Film School. Welcome back to Discount Film School. We've been very busy throughout the spring and summer screening festival screeners for a film festival. I participated in the Film Festival last year. I was a movie in the film festival. And they contacted me and said, hey, would you like to screen movies for it? And I said, what does that entail? And they said about 75 hours of submissions. And I said, sure, because it sounded like an interesting opportunity. You guys, I'm talking to Emily and John Hunt.
Mm-hmm. Hi.
You guys are sickos, I would say. You said, hey, I'd like to watch some of those movies with you.
You know what? I watched a few, but you guys had entire days.
We did.
Where you were doing 10 hours of film watching.
We pulled 10 hours. More than that, actually. Some of them were even longer than that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Just a couple.
I put in a couple of hours here and there.
It all started when I announced that I was doing this, and John was like, mind if I joined for a few? Yeah. And we would do them remotely. We would queue them up on his computer, and I'm pretty sure that I was the only official screener that technically you shouldn't be allowed to, because they're actually pretty protective of the movies. Like, they don't want them to leave
of course.
The firewall, if you will. But, you know, if you're going to embark on a 75-hour journey, you need to bring some friends along the way.
That's right.
So you watched many hours with me.
Yes.
Emily, you're downplaying how many you watched. You probably watched, I don't know, maybe 10 to 20 hours of these.
Oh, wow.
Wouldn't you say?
Where did all that time go?
You were having a lot of fun. So I thought, you know, there's no better reason in the world to have done this than to have recorded a podcast about it.
Yep.
We've all seen a lot of the movies. We have new insight about the current state of independent film.
Yeah, I think that was the most fascinating aspect of it all.
Because we've been at this since about 2000.
Yep.
And it was good for an ego boost on your part, too, because you look at what these people are thinking is their magnum opus and submitting to film festivals, and it's just not quite worth it. And how much do we determine it costs to enter? $75?
Yeah, $75.
And so there are people out there who looked at this 5-minute film where it turns out everybody's got a dog head and they're having a tea party.
That one's good.
And they thought, you know what? Yeah, $75. I'm gonna submit this.
That kind of sets the bar for what you're watching, because if it was a free film festival, if anybody could submit, you'd have thousands more submissions.
Yeah, of arguably lower quality, probably.
Right. Of anything anybody makes ever.
Yeah.
Well, and so what we ended up with was a lot of ones that looked beautiful, but were completely inexplicable. Like they were too artsy because they had no plot.
Something I've said for a long time is like, a beautiful look is something that you can spend money on some of the time. You know, that reduces the role of cinematographers. But a lot of times what makes a movie look better is more time, more equipment, more expertise.
Yeah, and better technology.
But do you guys think it's easier than ever to get that look these days? If you're just a complete amateur and you've just got your iPhone, can you make a movie and can it look as good as?
I would say that there's a standard good that everybody can now achieve, yes. And then anything past that to stand out needs to be more special.
Yeah, but that standard good keeps pushing upwards as the technology improves and makes it nearly foolproof for you to do anything.
Because of all these submissions, I think I only saw one that was really poorly done, like used really poor equipment. I'm thinking of, the religious one.
Oh, yeah, the Live Love one?
Yeah, the Live Love one. And that was the only one that stood out to me as looking bad.
Do you want to describe like the plot and what happened in that movie?
If I can. Because I think you posted about this one on Facebook because it was just so inexplicable. It was the only one that stands out, like maybe Birdemic or The Room, in being so bad that I have to watch it and show it to everybody. And when I'm talking about these movies that we saw, that's one that pops up, as well as, and then they all turned into fish, and then they all had dog heads. And then he should have shot his dad, but didn't. And it's got the mom from E.T.
The idea of purpose.
The idea of purpose.
I don't know if we're allowed to say them. This is like totally irresponsible to like say the movies, call them out.
It is.
But that one didn't get in, so there will be nothing tagged about this that leads that person to this podcast and hurts their feelings. But it was. So
terrible. In this, you have it starts out with these students on a college campus having a Bible study. And this girl kind of describing the way she's been feeling about wishing she could help more, help other people in their spiritual journey. She goes to a coffee shop where there's this really depressed guy sitting there poring over papers and touching his wife's photo over and over. And she sits down with him and starts studying, and they have some very stilted conversation about Shakespeare. And then a guy starts shooting up the diner.
Well, wait a minute. I'm going to pause you there. The most awkward guy to ever walk the planet.
Oh, right. Before he starts shooting, he's very pacing back and forth.
Yeah, he's very stiff-backed. He just if you were in a real coffee place and this guy with the leather jacket and a stiff back started just kind of pacing with something below his leather jacket, and his hair is a little bit messed up, and then when he starts firing, he's got the bitchiest voice in the world. He's like, everybody down on the ground right now. I mean it. And
well, what you were describing in your Facebook status too was that they were all medium shots. You can't tell how full the diner is.
Right.
You don't even know how concerned you're supposed to be for everyone's safety.
It could just be the two people.
You don't know if there's anybody there. And so the awkward, sad guy at the table pulls out a gun and shoots the would-be assassin in the leg. And the guy falls on the ground and screams and then kind of is just quiet with his face down. Presumably dead. I don't know. And then nobody calls the police or anything. And then sad guy runs out. Now, while he's holding up his gun and about to shoot the robber, whatever,
right,
the Bible girl is screaming, "No, don't do it. You have to feel love, be love, live love." And then he shoots him anyway. And then he darts out of the coffee shop and he goes to this just precipice overlooking the city.
Rooftop.
And he pulls out a picture of his wife and he goes, "We did it, baby."
And we're like, what the fuck?
And then she's back at the coffee shop and she's looking at the stuff he was pouring over. And there are these horribly laid out newspapers that seem to describe that they were in a diner on their wedding night and his wife got shot.
That's pretty accurate, actually.
That's very accurate.
The way she just represented the movie makes it seem like they, like it worked.
Like it was comprehensible.
Yeah.
And it wasn't. It was...
Well, the thing is, I've watched this so many times.
To bring it into a little bit wider focus, I mean, there were a number of films that kind of suffered from what I thought was that the writer knew the problem, but didn't give the audience enough detail to form any kind of comprehensive story.
So speaking of giving the audience detail, we've got a lot of detail that we got to fill in before we start, before we do any further analysis. Yeah. But I did want to give you room to do the idea of purpose, because I would say that was pretty much our bottom. Yeah. But there are a few other bottom dwellers that we'll get into.
Like the one where everyone turns into fish. That's another favorite of mine. 75
hours, mixed feature and shorts. So...
and some were documentaries and
like animation, like any genre. But
do you have a percentage? Do you have a percentage of what was features and what was shorts?
Of what we watched?
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
Of those 75 hours.
We ultimately screened 77 hours of short films because they ended up sending us last-minute ones saying, "Can you please watch more?" And we did have so much fun watching them that we did decide to. This is the genre breakdown. We had 4 animated shorts, 1 documentary feature, 7 documentary shorts, 26 narrative features. Wow. So we're talking about, I think the criteria for that is 45 minutes and over.
Yeah. I don't recall many in the low end range anyway.
No. Although ours was, and it got in last year. Ours was 65. 111 narrative shorts. And that makes for 150 films combined.
Wow.
I watched 150
yes,
films.
You watched, there were many that you watched that I didn't. But.
In the guidelines, they say that you are allowed at the 40-minute mark to stop watching the movie. Yep.
Did you do that with any of these?
No.
Nice. So if it's a 40-minute, you have to watch the whole thing. And
shorts you always have to watch the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And so they're really that rule only applies to features. Yeah. I am a filmmaker. I always have been very paranoid that when I submit for $75, $75 that at one time in my life I didn't have. Is anybody watching this thing, or did they look at the cover and go, no?
Yeah.
So does this make you feel better about the process? Like that that there are several people watching and they are looking at these criteria and finding you worthy?
The guidelines require you to score every movie. And to score the movies, you have to watch them.
I've actually thought the scoring system was really well designed.
The Film Festival, about 3,000 submissions a year.
And you showed me the schedule. Not very many of the things we watched showed up.
3 things.
3 things.
Of the 150.
Do you know how many we passed on? Like that
Yes.
we said were good?
Did you say, was it 26?
We passed along, and to pass along means you basically pass it to the next phase. Yeah. So I'm like a bottom screener. Like they give me this stuff online.
Well, it's you give it a score. If it gets a passing score, you decide whether or not you recommend it. And so this is your recommendation. That's how you passed it on.
The scores, yeah. Well, like I said, we'll get into how we actually score it. But yeah, I ultimately decide whether or not I'm going to pass the movie to the next layer of judges that say whether or not it gets in. So there was a short called The Story of Percival Pitts.
Pilts, because it rhymes with stilts. Yeah, I actually watched that last night. You told me that you had passed this on and you wanted me to see it, and it was so cute. Yeah. Oh, it was very well done too. Like you wouldn't think that it was done by an amateur. It looks like something that would need to screen before a Pixar film, maybe.
Yeah, it was kind of Roald Dahl, Dr. Seuss.
Very nice.
It was this really nice central concept of a kid who makes this conviction to always stand on stilts for the rest of his life, and then he actually has to, and is the weird person for the rest of his life because he made a promise to himself as a child.
He helps people get cats out of trees. He gets kites out of trees.
There was the one narrative feature of the 26 we watched.
Oh, Her Composition?
Her Composition.
Yeah. Which is like this mentally ill woman who's trying to write a piece of music, and she does it by fucking a lot of dudes.
Right, exactly.
Like every person she hooks up with, she takes something away and works it into her overall piece.
Zach just joined. Hi, Zach.
Hello.
You joined and watched a couple of these movies with us. When I hit the 75-hour mark and my obligation was done, they asked for a couple more hours. So you saw about 2 hours of movies, including one about a documentary about babies in Romania getting thrown out.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Which,
it was called bathwater.
It was called.
It wasn't.
Yeah, throwing the baby out with the
bathwater, throwing the baby out with the.
A documentary about a very serious issue in Romania.
Yeah.
That was so poorly made, it was hilarious.
It was incomprehensible.
It was just all over the place. Like
there were pretty much like 3 camera setups total. Yep. It was just a couple of and remember the subtitles were so off that you couldn't read them?
Yes.
Oh no, I would hate that.
Like they were trailing behind.
As somebody who deals with subtitles every day.
Yeah, Zach subtitles for Crunchyroll and for a few other services, right?
Yes.
That's my dream job.
You gotta hook it up now. So, and what else did you see? We saw Bracken Rain, which was a Korean film about.
That was pretty incomprehensible too.
It was so experimental that it just dissolved.
It was pretty.
Yeah, it had some interesting visuals, like a lot of films did. But
there was Meat, which was about a man who.
It was okay.
Sold meat. It was alright.
He sold meat.
Yeah.
We didn't pass it on though.
No, it was okay.
The story wasn't there. RPG, which was about a really amusing game of Dungeons and Dragons.
It started off really strong.
And then halfway through,
it became a different movie.
It devolves into everybody's romantic problems, and it gets really dramatic, and then it ends.
Yeah.
Well, what would have happened if you had stopped watching that at 40 minutes? Like, does it stay strong for 40 minutes?
That was a short.
We would have had to stop watching it about 6.
I've wondered about that too with some of these things you've watched. If there are any that start out strong, keep it for 40 minutes, and then if you had stopped watching it, if you would have passed it on, and then ended up passing on something that had a crappy ending.
Well, good point.
Interestingly, I think the other way around, Her Composition, which is one of the ones that actually made it through, I thought started off really lousy.
Yeah.
And it was because they used this really this trick that I didn't care for.
The aspect ratio.
Yeah, where they
and because they were using it in flashbacks, right? They changed their aspect ratio.
Yeah, that's
flashbacks.
right.
Which is actually kind of clever.
I didn't think it was that clever at all. I didn't like it. I thought it was distracting.
I didn't like the ending of
that. Was actually, if we had stopped 40 minutes into that film, I think I wouldn't have liked it nearly as much. So. But I can't think of any in the other direction.
That movie did kind of like it got so. We're talking about this movie called Her Composition that actually got in. It was the only feature that we passed along that got in, and it was about a woman who goes to a prestigious music school, and she needs to put together like a musical composition, and she needs inspiration, so she decides to basically just fuck everybody. And she just has lots and lots of sex, irresponsible sex.
Every guy she fucks, she like goes to this mural she's working on the wall and starts like drawing things about him.
Yeah.
And like taping like napkins from their date and stuff to the wall. And it starts looking very Beautiful Mind, where it's crazy and only she can see where these threads intersect. And I was just waiting for her to take her composition back and be like, see, and then to be like, what? You're expelled. But it turned out that she was a genius all along. And whatever this process was, where she's taping shit to a wall and drawing a picture of the Brooklyn Bridge to represent this black guy, I don't know, like somehow that ended up being
this was
genius.
the film.
And I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that. I don't really like seeing that kind of thing win out in the end. But I mean,
I kind of do. I guess that's ultimately what I liked about it was I was like, they didn't demonize her. Like, and she deconstructed throughout the whole, she starts getting like some form of AIDS.
Yeah. She starts falling to bits, but she pulls it together at the end. And it's kind of.
She starts getting very sweaty and pimply and terrible things.
Yeah, these are the early stages of AIDS.
Correct. Sweaty and pimply. Correct me if I'm wrong, Frankie. I think that was the only film with full frontal male nudity. Was it?
There was some cock in the movie, yeah.
Yeah, that was the only one, though, out of all 150.
Is that true? I don't know. I don't really have I did keep some stats. That wasn't
one of them.
We should have. Wait. Was there any nudity in that Blackwater movie? Or Darkwater?
What was that about?
That was the one where everybody turns into fish at the end.
I don't...
because he's in love with, like, a stripper.
Yeah, they're transgendered people.
Yes.
Transgendered people.
But
transgressive people. They're fish now.
I don't think we see any cock, male, female, or otherwise.
Female, male, fish cock.
And the other one that got in that...
Real mystery.
This one's really interesting. I really want to be clear on this. It's the only documentary feature we watched in the entire run, and we passed it along, and it got in. It's called Zen and the Art of Dying. It's about a bunch of hippies in, I think, Hawaii.
Yeah, somewhere tropical, somewhere warm.
Taking a Zen approach to death.
Yeah.
Where you kind of like embrace it and enjoy it.
And we watched this pretty early on, as I recall.
Yeah, like so early we felt miscalibrated. Later were like, oh, that was a real mistake.
Yeah, we shouldn't have passed that on.
Because you start to develop a discerning taste the more the process goes on, where you know what the good ones are, you know what the bad ones are, you know which ones you shouldn't get. Because at first you have this instinct where you're like, oh, I should give this little movie a chance, or like, somebody, I see some good aspects of it, somebody else should watch it. But then,
and that's kind of your falling down too as a screener is that you really believe in people making their art, and you really give a pass to people who suck sometimes. When I try to make fun of something, you're like, yeah, but he really did it. He finished his movie. And so probably at the beginning, you were being a little soft-hearted like that.
Participation award.
All I'm trying to point out is that it's a miracle to make a movie ever.
Yeah.
It's a miracle when it's super good. It's a miracle when it's The Room. It's a miracle like anywhere in between. So,
now, I had a question because you said this is the only feature-length documentary.
That's
you
right.
guys also watched one about gang members who everybody had a shaved head, and it was completely shot from the back, so you couldn't tell who was who.
Yeah, but that was that was narrative. Even though it was documentary-esque, it was narrative.
That was narrative.
It was narrative.
It was shot in a documentary style, perhaps, but
yeah.
Because I enjoy your description of it more than I think I would enjoy the movie. So I just like thinking about it more so that I want to watch it. Wasn't there one called Male Man, but male was M-A-L-E or something?
You watched that one.
Well, I think that might have been the one that said special thanks to Maria Natapoff at the end. Because one of them that you and I watched together had a thanks to Maria.
Oh, that's another really good point is when you watch 150 independent films submitted to one festival and you yourself are an independent filmmaker, you see people you know. and that's a really fucked up thing.
I bet. How do you have any idea how many, like, were there more than a couple people you know?
It kept happening.
Yeah.
There was one that was the little blonde boy from Sexually Frank was in a movie. Mm-hmm. In fact, he played young mailman.
Oh, okay. So that was the one.
Is that so?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
There was, what else?
Well, and every now and again, too, you get recognizable actors. There was Flowers in December that had the mom from E.T.
Right. There was...
and I just watched that the other day, and that was pretty good. I'm surprised That didn't get in?
Yeah, we passed that along. That was really good. There was the kid from American Horror Story. He played Quicksilver in Days of Future Past. He was in a movie called Safe Flight that was very boring, but he was very good in it. You saw that?
Yeah, he was good in it.
He was he had like CP, but it wasn't clear he had CP until about halfway through.
Yeah, I thought it was actually a really good performance in an unfortunately otherwise kind of dismal and not really well thought out film.
Actually, that was an example. This very rarely happens where you have a really good cast across the board.
Yeah.
I thought a lot of the acting in that was good because also there was a guy from True Blood in that. He that show True Blood. He plays like a witch in True Blood, but he's in this and he's amazing in it. Do you remember it was like the bully in the movie?
Yeah,
he's hilarious.
It was the acting, and that was definitely not the standard case though.
No, it's very rare that you have a movie that has an excellent cast and they're all performing and engaging, and just the story itself is not engaging. Yeah, normally the cast falls down with everything else.
Yes, well, with everything except the technical.
So Zen and the Art of Dying, to get back to it.
Well, you told me that if I wanted to get an idea of what it was like, just watch the first 5 minutes. And that's it.
Yeah, I don't know that there's anything beyond that.
Is that pretty much how it goes? You watch the first 5 minutes and you get it?
We watched the whole thing and we saw an interesting little documentary and we thought it was good enough to pass along.
Yeah.
Then down the line, we said, wait a minute, that probably wasn't good enough. Then to our shock, it got into the actual film festival.
Yeah.
So now is a good time to actually look at the score sheet and what's involved in scoring these damn things.
Yeah.
And
yeah, definitely, because I found it really interesting, the standards that they upheld and things that would and would not get in. Like, just looking good is not good enough. Like, you are required to have a plot and you are required to have characters.
This film festival, perhaps more than your average, because they tout themselves as a writers' festival. And so they put story first. They insist that the thing have a story. So yeah, it can't just be an amazing, like, bizarre experimental film, for instance. Every time we watched anything, we had to fill out, it took a good, 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes to fill out each one of these scorecards. And so naturally, if you watch a lot more, if you watch 10 shorts instead of 3 features, you have a lot more overhead work to do in terms of scoring.
And you fill these out for every single one, regardless of it was just terrible and I don't like it. You have to actually break down what was wrong about one that was terrible, just the same way you would about one that you're passing on.
No matter how much you want it to just be like, no.
We're done here.
Because they do document, and you asked earlier, does it make me feel better about how I fared? It does, because I can see a really clear scientific method for how they're choosing the movies.
Yeah.
And this past year, we were in a category called the comedy last year, having fun up there. And this year, there were only 5 features in that category.
Now, last year, did you see any of the others that showed up in that category? The only other thing that I watched last year, other than your movie, was I went to a roundup of young directors' short films. And when they say young, I think they be in high school.
Right.
Because my husband had been in one.
Right.
And it was kind of baffling how his film got in, because it had such bad audio syncing issues that it was distracting and just really poorly done.
I don't think that that's part of the central roster of I when you look at the lineup on the website, I don't think you're looking at those.
Yeah. But I guess that's what they do with a bunch of the shorts, is they put them together into a categorized set.
Yeah, bundle of shorts.
So when you think about 3,000 submissions, you think about overall probably about 15 to 20 features. We'll get into it finally. And yours got in through this process, which is a stepped process where everybody has to score it and multiple people have to approve it that might not even know each other.
Yep.
It's kind of a miracle.
Yeah.
So the scorecard.
Yeah.
First, they would ask the category storytelling and plot. And they ask all of these questions, and you're supposed to address all of these questions in your response. Is there a strong narrative? Does the film create a compelling world? How well is the story told? Was the subject compelling? Is there a clear beginning, middle, and end? How are the pacing and timing? Do the methods of storytelling, interviews, voiceovers, temporal elements, etc., serve the film? How well are they integrated? Is there a narrative drive?
And that's just the first part, isn't it?
That's just the first part.
Yeah.
Often they did not have beginnings, middles, and ends.
No.
And that's one, there's another one that I talk about a lot, where it's an old man and his son walking through the forest. It's called Foray. The joke being that they're out walking around. It's a foray, but also it's the word forest in French. It's got a little hat over the E.
And yet it's not a comedy.
No. Well, they were out walking around. The old man is having hallucinations of a woman offering him a cigarette. He's making his old senile father take his medicine. And I thought the only way this can end, it's only like 10 minutes long, but the only way this can end and bring it back is if he's taking his father out to the forest to shoot him in the head. That's the only ending I'm accepting. And no, they just walk around and then they go back to their car and then they drive home. That's not an ending, you guys. That's the one that comes to mind for me because it was so, I mean, it was beautiful. It had it had promise. Because it looked good and it had characters, I guess, but it had no end.
Say it with me. It looked pretty.
It looked pretty.
It looked nice. It looked like a real movie.
It looked like a real movie. The second category is originality and concept. Is the film original? Does it have unique qualities that separate it from other films? Is it a retold story? And if so, does it have an original take? Is it fresh? They make you rate it from 0 to 20.
Yeah.
Or 1 to 20, I guess. 20 being the highest, 1 being the lowest, and there are 5 categories, so eventually it'll be
out of 100.
It'll be out of 100. And originality often stumped me because while I can say I've never seen a movie like that, I never wanted to.
And this brings us to Dark Water, the one where there's some sort of disease going around where people turn into fish. And the guy's running through the streets and everyone's glowing green. And then they get to, gets to this bar that he's been frequenting. And the prostitute that he's in love with has a fish head. Like, that's original.
That's a lot more coherent than a lot of the things I saw.
As we know, I'm able to put a spin on it that explains like it has a plot. That one was pretty inexplicable. I've watched that a couple of times.
If you could boil it down, no pun intended, it's the end of the world and everyone's turning into fish. That's kind of a plot.
Yeah.
That's kind of like a plot.
You know, it was kind of interesting because a lot of them came with summaries from the director, and I often found that by reading the summary from the director, you could understand way more of what the film was about than by actually watching.
Shall we actually talk about
one of our favorites? I hesitate to call it out by name because it's so cruel, but.
I think I know which one we're talking about.
Oh, yes, you do.
And let me just say, too, that we found out later that it was meant to be a companion piece to another film. That other film never got finished.
And I'm supposed to know this shit.
Yeah. And so this is meant to be a look into a character from a larger film.
Yeah.
And that film doesn't exist. Yeah, so now this is just a look at a guy who also doesn't exist.
Yeah, the name of the film is Window Chalk.
Oh, that one.
You saw it.
I saw that one, yeah.
And I nicknamed it A Young Man is Unwell because that's all I could.
Unwell, because we got to the end and Frankie said, John, tell us what that is about. I'm saying this like I was even in the room with you guys. I've just heard the story enough times.
That's the only thing I could get out.
What is this movie about? Well, a young man is unwell.
It's the only thing you can really get out of the 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, because it's like this kid, he's out in a barn by himself. He's drawing things that are now coming to life. And so he draws himself a brother, or he draws himself an older version of himself.
A gay boyfriend.
A gay boyfriend.
You didn't know this? The movie it's a gay movie.
Yeah, it's well, gay in a way. So
genre under homosexual.
Yeah, it is. And no, so the idea is he draws these portals and it draws out this young man he's attracted to, but the young man gets distracted, and so he draws out like a coach from his school who to distract him or keep him interested. It was very, very strange. But I only got that because I read the director's summary, who he very helpfully provided a very well-written summary. If only the film had been able to connect.
That was like that was the film I couldn't understand anything that was being said.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, because it starts off with them going, lemon dream drops.
Yes, lemon dream drops. It does.
But isn't he like writing these words into the dust on his desk out in the barn too, or something? Lemon dream drops,
dear.
or writing it with
in
chalk.
the last minutes, he goes up to a mother who's screaming and being crazy, and then he starts walking around outside.
Yeah.
It's completely incomprehensible.
Totally.
It's precisely the sort of thing the festival doesn't want.
Yep.
And then, you know what? You feel terrible because then you go, you would think I don't have time for 150 movies to look into every one of them. But if they were intriguing enough, we would look on their website and see like, what the fuck are they talking about?
Well, and when you say things that the festival wants, there was a lot of that coming into play. There was some politics involved where you thought they're going to want feminist movies, or
right.
they're going to want something with kind of a positive spin on another culture.
Well, I remember one that was really interesting about this. Well, I don't remember the name of the film.
Is this the one about the Indian woman?
Yes,
Yeah.
who gets a face cream, but she uses it wrong and it ruins her face, basically.
Wow. This was not a documentary.
No,
No, it was a narrative.
She wants to have a fairer skin face because the beauty standard in India is that
A lighter
the more
skin.
Caucasian you are, the hotter you are.
And we saw another one that was about Indian women and the standard of beauty because
Right.
it was like an aging soap star.
That's right.
Or something like that. And she was being replaced by her own daughter who was becoming more famous than her.
We
or
actually
something
passed that
something
along
like
because
that.
that was pretty good.
Yeah, it was not bad. That was a feature.
I'm surprised that none of that stuff went through.
I maybe I was being too cynical. I got the here's why I got that impression. To even be qualified, to even be approved to be a screener, they made me take a test.
Yeah.
Oh, really? I don't know this part.
Really? They made me score 3 movies to see how I do at this.
Yeah.
And one of them was a documentary about a bus driver, and it was a very interesting man, but a terrible documentary. And they wanted me to say that.
But these were movies that had already either made it in or didn't make it in previous
know.
years, or these were new for this year.
I don't know.
I think they were just solely for the purpose of testing.
Yeah, I think they were part of a test pool.
Calibrating.
A cesspool.
Yes. The second was about a Middle Eastern family who goes to the mall and runs into some racism that is undue.
Undo.
As opposed to most of this justified racism we see.
And the
cozy.
third was a narrative about 2 boys growing up, and it was very much like Boyhood, but it was even more boring, even more slow and pointless. Even though I had pretty good performances, so I scored all of them. This was in the preliminary stages, and I said that they were all terrible, and I didn't pass any of them on. And they said, well, we want you then, because too many people are too nice. However, we would have liked to have seen you pass along the Middle Eastern racism one. And that gave me the impression of like, oh, do they want to see more social justice in the movies?
Yeah.
Right, because later you were called out for not being mean enough.
Right.
You showed us this email that you received.
Yeah, we'll look at that. So the third category, characters and subjects. Are the characters fully developed and interesting? If the film is a narrative, does the dialogue work? Do the characters have a distinct dialogue, or does everyone sound the same? If the film is a documentary, are the subjects that act as primary characters, are the characters compelling? Do they exhibit change? Not often.
No. Characters were a major problem.
Lots of movies with people doing nothing.
Yeah. Nothing at all.
Can someone tell me why there are lots of movies with people doing nothing?
I think that people think that that's interesting because it's like a view on life, but that's not what makes a film. That's not what makes a story, like an action.
Is it kind of like in
what
life
makes a
when you
film.
meet a quiet person and they try to pass their quietness off as intelligence?
Yeah, like quiet intensity kind
You know
of
what I
thing.
mean? They're kind of like, well, I only talk when I have something intelligent to say.
Yeah.
And you're like, no, you don't. Just don't talk at all. Yeah. And then finally, general impression. Was the film impacting in some way? Were you invested in the story? Did the film create an absorbing world? Did you care about the outcome of the film? Did you take anything away from it? Did the film realize its intentions? Did the film make you think? Does the film inspire conversation? Did the film fulfill the mission of the festival?
Well, what did they state is the mission of the festival?
I think it's like along the lines of like to tell very competent stories.
Because that's kind of what you were taking away from it, is that since it's a writers' festival, they rely on really good writing.
At once, they have the biggest screenplay competition, I think, in the country, and they started out as a screenwriting festival, and then they started allowing productions in, and so they really want to make sure it's good, solid storytelling. I remember, so we're going to get into the email where they told me to be more mean. Yeah. I remember one was I thought a really good script. It was about It was about these gangsters, of course, so it's a little bit cliche in that way, but...
This is not the one with everyone having shaped heads.
No. Do you want me to talk about that? I can talk about that one.
Well, I didn't get to see it, and the descriptions of it are the best part.
All right, I promise I'll talk about it in a minute.
Okay.
It was like a cross and then a double cross. It was I thought it was kind of good.
Yeah.
Was this the like Asian kung fu one that we saw?
No. That was like the worst thing I've ever seen.
It looked really nice.
Yeah, did it? I don't even know if that one did.
I thought that one was pretty good. It had some innovative stuff to it. Innovative stuff. This is why you're the screener, not me.
No, I remember you took this very seriously, even though you weren't an official screener. You were like,
this is really serious business.
Do you remember we were watching them and you started looking like we went out to like eat and you were thinking of everything in terms of these categories, like everything was through the prism of.
Yeah, I think I was trying to apply color theory to one of these things. I'm like, look, it's yellow when she's happy. You know.
I remember you assessing a rest stop on the side of the road. You're like clean bathrooms, however, could have been located closer to the road. And
I do remember that.
They also had the responses had minimum words, so or minimum characters.
Yeah.
So I couldn't just be like sucks, dicks, no, done.
0 out of 0.
I can't even.
I literally can't even.
So in the Be Meaner email, they said, hey, Frankie, we're in the process of reviewing our screeners' scores, and I wanted to check in with evaluations you're giving us. I'm a little concerned with how many yeses you're turning in. So far, out of the 27 films you watched, you've said yes to 12, which is a 44% yes rate. So I had watched 27 up to that point. I would have about 115 to go.
Yep.
We consider it a warning sign if a screener gives a yes to more than 30%. Makes sense because they have 3,000 submissions.
Yeah.
And you got one maniac just past
40%. Like, oh.
It's all wonderful.
I like movies.
I remember telling somebody that I was doing this, and they were like, that's so cool. So you get to like watch a bunch of movies? And I'm like, these aren't movies.
Yeah, one could say that, but...
Yeah. I pulled and watched a couple of the films that you gave a yes to that someone else gave a no to, and I wanted to touch on them briefly. Overall, I think you just need to be a little meaner and a little less forgiving on certain aspects. So he gets to base that off of what I'm saying about the movies, right? Yeah. So he actually has a starting place for this. So for instance, on He's the Best, which I know you saw both sides of, the positive elements of the film don't really line up with our mission. While it was well shot and there's certainly a message being communicated, the story is bare to non-existent. We don't know anything about the protagonist and don't have much of a narrative arc. More of a setup and then a punchline. I think a good way of thinking of films like this is that the story isn't the primary focus or intent of the film, which should always be a no for the purpose of. The second film I watched was the gangster short A Way Out, so it's this one. It's definitely understandable why you like this film. However, for the purposes of you need to be extra critical on dialogue and originality. For me, the dialogue was too on the nose. I think he's right about that. I think it was actually pretty good dialogue, but whatever. It's hard for me to believe that someone could break into a monologue as quickly as that old guy did. Your film last year was one of the very few I found where a monologue in the middle of a scene came across as natural. Oh. And I delivered that monologue. Beyond the monologue, the dialogue was all too on point, brisk, and efficient to feel authentic to me. Very written, quotes. As for originality, I think you could be a little harsher on this aspect as well. Pulp Fiction and In Bruges came up pretty instantly for me while watching the film, but there are a lot of others that tell this exact story. Just because a film tells a story well doesn't mean it differentiates itself from its ilk. Like I said earlier, a film doesn't need to reinvent the wheel, but it does need to stand out from similar movies. I couldn't really find a moment in this film that I hadn't seen in another film. All of this isn't to say that you're wrong in any way, and I would never claim that either of these two movies are bad. It's just not our job here. However, what I will say is that neither quite cut it in fitting in well with our mission. Let me know your thoughts. I'll talk on the phone if you want.
Wow. This guy is awesome.
I emailed him with one line that said, I hate almost everything I'm watching. I'll be much meaner. Because I was trying to be nice. And he was like, oh, wait, you hate everything? So have you seen anything that you love so far? And at the time, no. The answer was like, no, absolutely not.
So you developed a crust around your heart to...
Yes. Well, I just allowed it to grow.
3 sizes that day.
There was one movie. John saw it too. Yeah. And did you see it, Emily? Zellos?
Yeah, I showed it to Zach. Has seen it as well.
No, I don't think so.
Shit, I should have told you to watch it. No.
What was it?
Zellos.
Zelos.
I thought it was a paragon of excellence.
Of all 150 movies, we thought this movie was excellent.
Wow, I should watch it.
And it didn't get into the festival.
No, it had beautiful cinematography, a really tight, comprehensive story, good characters,
and original story.
Yeah, original story too. I really don't understand.
All right, no spoilers, you guys, because that's what I'm going to watch after we're done.
Well,
here.
wait, I should probably tell the people what it's about, even though you don't want it spoiled, right?
Should I put my fingers in my ears?
Yeah, I guess so.
Should I listen to this segment later?
All right, it's a movie. It's the not too distant future.
Yeah.
Not to start singing Mystery Science Theater.
And then not.
But it's a time in which you can order a clone of yourself through the mail to help you around the house or help you accomplish a task. Some people might want it for me, it's like, oh, I got to do my day job, but I also want somebody to record this podcast. Yeah. So I'll clone myself and have a clone sent to my house. This woman is having a hard time competing for status with her neighbors. And she's while also like attending to her husband's sexual needs, while also attending to her stay-at-home.
Because he's a real monster.
So she of course
she
orders
needs a whole other person to sexually satisfy her husband.
She of course orders this clone, who of course the husband actually does fuck.
Yes.
and she didn't really want to have sex with her husband very often, but now the clone's doing it all the time, and she's jealous.
Yes.
She ends up being able to like run a road race and beat.
Yeah, because she was doing her training.
She was training, and she wanted to beat her neighbor, her shitty neighbor, at a road race. And ultimately, it's unclear at the end whether like this one of the two of them is being very motherly with the family, and it's unclear which one of them it is.
Which I actually kind of like that.
You're like, we don't know which one feels on the outs.
Yeah.
You know, is it the clone all jealous of the family she doesn't get to have, or is it the other one being put out? So, and that's not to even go into description on how beautifully shot this thing was.
Yeah, and you know, not to be unfair to you, Frankie, but the actual film is even more nicely woven together than the way you described it. But I was shocked. I thought for sure that one was a shoo-in. That was probably my favorite thing that we saw in the whole festival.
And anytime we saw anything that kind of rose above the rest like that, whenever you look them up on IMDb, they're established in some way. Like,
but maybe that's what kind of pulled it away. Maybe wasn't looking for folks that are super established.
Maybe not. I don't know. I mean, I got in, for God's sake, and I'm not,
super established.
Well, you're established. You're on IMDb at least. It's got
that is a low bar to clear.
It's got your height and birthday, right?
There was a time when I was like, I've done it, and
but aren't you?
You pay $34.95.
You pay for that, right?
Keith
There you
Seidel's
go.
On IMDb. Yeah, Zach's on IMDb, for God's sake. I think with multiple credits.
I used to watch my star meter rise, and I'm like, what's going on here?
Somebody wants to get Zach in for a picture.
Well, I was in one terrible short film, so maybe I should be on IMDb too.
Emily, if you man up and make a movie with me, we can actually get you on there a lot.
Yeah.
Let's do this thing.
So you want to hear about bald heads? There was
all the time.
There was a narrative that I would say was probably very complicated to make. I mean, it looked very hard. It
did
to make that movie. It's about maybe Los Angeles, some area of California.
Very ambitious.
It's about gang life, drug gang life, from multiple points of view: a prison guard, a young child or a teen, and somebody who's very established in it. And they decided to go with this style where they follow people walking around all the time.
Oh, and it really hurt it.
Like basically a Steadicam style. And because
how would you say these things are mounted? Like, are you actually seeing the back of the character's head the whole time?
Often, yeah.
Like, is there a camera mounted to their shoulders?
No. It's on a Steadicam operator's body probably, but they still are like they'll go upstairs and then they'll go through the kitchen, or like I remember they had what I thought was a really good opening, which was in that style where you don't know who anybody is. There's just violence.
Yeah, I actually thought that was really good, but it turned out to just be serendipitous rather than intentional.
It turned out that was the style of the whole movie.
Yeah, if they had used that as kind of a narrative device, I thought that would have been really solid.
Right.
But they were just...
And there was a couple of times where they did interesting things with Steadicam, where they like went inside of a house, went up to the top, followed around a few characters, then stayed there and let other characters, like there were these two kids that went downstairs, went outside, and then suddenly you were looking out the window.
Yeah.
So
it was smart. It was some moments.
So it switched from who they were following. Like it went to another character and now that character went outside.
Yeah, it was like it was trying to play with space, like the amount of space between the camera and the subjects. But often it was just in the form of following their fucking heads around. And they had bald heads and like because everybody was kind of skinheadish. And after a while, you were like, I would really love to see one of these characters' faces because I don't even know who they are.
Eventually, you did get to see them, but even when you did, you didn't know who they were because you've just been following them around.
Right.
And I mean, it actually was a legitimate problem with figuring out who was talking and who was trying to relay what part of the story.
It's true. 75 hours is kind of the minimum obligation when you agree to be a screener. If you do it, you get a badge and you can actually go to the festival, but I didn't. There are remote screeners and there are local screeners. So I'm a remote one, meaning all of the submissions came through either Vimeo password protected or through Without a Box. But if you were local, you would have to attend like team meetings and you'd have to pick up DVDs and watch them on DVD and stuff.
Do they have like group showings at that point? Like, would you go to a theater and they would show a bunch of these?
There's nothing about that in these guidelines, so I don't think so.
Because that would have been fun. I would have done that if that was an option.
I think that they would think that that was kind of a waste of resources because, like, if you have 10 people watching the same movie, you could have them watch 10 movies.
Yeah.
You know, they're trying to just get through the mess. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, most of these people's year is preparing for this festival, meaning, like, can you guys imagine if we needed to do this, like, again now? I would just kill myself. I mean, I loved it, but I'll never do it again.
Really? I would do it again.
Oh, I would do it again.
You guys are nuts.
I watched maybe 50 hours. I don't think there's probably another 25 that you watched that I didn't. Well, and I would do it again.
I'm going to refer John and I'll refer you because you could be local. You could actually pick up DVDs and everything. You're out there.
Yeah, I would happily. I'll
maybe.
It gave me a lot of perspective on the momentary state of
Well, it gives you a new way of looking at what makes a good movie. At least me, because I'm not a filmmaker the way you guys are. And so being able to define in exact terms what is making a good movie and what is not making a good movie.
Through that rubric, they really help you think about that. Like you know, they make you answer those questions that might be implicit most of the time.
I mean, one of the things that was really kind of very interesting to me was even the ones that were watchably good but not great. Probably the reality is nobody's ever going to see them.
No. Lots of movies, and they all have Kickstarters. Every last one of them.
Yeah, except for the people involved and festival screeners. Nobody's going to see these, and that's kind of sad. That's a sad thing. I mean, so you could say the same thing for some of our films, like Abo. I mean, Abo never got a lot of viewership out of anyone. So
no, it's kind of almost like a joke of a movie.
And it's the same thing for all these other people who in some cases made stuff that's not good, but in some cases made things that are quite watchable and quite enjoyable. You know, I don't know. It's kind of sad.
It seems like there should be a streaming service where they can all just go to die.
Yeah. Well, YouTube is that streaming service, but
that's true. I guess in a world of YouTube, YouTube is the $0 submission film festival.
Yes. 300 views, 300 hits on YouTube.
I think, and for me, I was really blown away by, even though I hated most of them, even the ones I hated, I was blown away by how good the average was.
Yeah.
Because I've been watching shitty movies when I first started out. I watched them all through college. I watched them all through my master's program. I've been watching shitty people try to make shitty movies, including myself, for a very long time. And
so you're saying that the baseline has gone up since you started.
Yeah.
Now, what do you attribute to that? Do you think it's technology making it look better, or do you think the standards are so high these days that people watch a lot of good stuff on TV? They watch a lot of.
I don't think it's that. I think
what?
it's a lot more people have the opportunity to practice.
Yeah, and the $75 bar here. I think that kept the real cruft out. Because for all the 3,000 here and the 150 we saw, there's probably 30 or 300,000 films that they just didn't quite like them enough or didn't care about them enough to put them into a festival.
Because even Window Chalk, is actually like you couldn't get a beginning filmmaker to make a movie that looks that good.
No.
It's a joke of a movie.
It is,
and
but
yet it's like not anyone could do that. Yeah. There were only maybe seriously, of the 150, maybe 3 that were just hilarious jokes. Yeah. They were just like, get the fuck out of here.
And that's kind of incredible if you think about it. I mean, if you kind of put things on a bell curve of how good they are, I mean, that's very little at the bottom end of that curve.
Well, in a situation like that, do you think these beginning filmmakers are just so myopic that they have no clue what else is out there that looks better and have no clue that the thing that they just made is not all that good?
No, I don't
And that
think
they should
so.
have just made it and thrown it out and then moved on to the next thing that might have been good enough.
I think that a lot of people get enough exposure to media, especially with YouTube now, to understand kind of what's good enough, you know? I don't know.
Well, I think she's talking about the 3, right? You're talking about like the
low.
Yeah,
three.
yeah. What leads someone to create something that's not all that good and then look at it and say, this is worth $75.
Yeah.
This is worth people's time and energy to come and see my movie.
Well, I remember when I was 15, I made some really garbage short films. Yeah. And I compared them to like the other people in my area making movies, and I was like, wow, I'm blowing them away. and I wasn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't. But could you have convinced Frankie, like 15-year-old Frankie, to spend a little money on a festival submission with like big hopes and big dreams? Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah, for films like Sumos or some of the early stuff that
I want to just scroll through some honorable mentions.
All right.
The Cockshore Lads.
That was the first thing, wasn't it?
All I got was you guys commenting on it, and it sounds just laughably bad.
It's dressed up to be a Hollywood movie, basically. There's a band, a UK band, the Great Big Sea, I think it's called. This movie was drippingly British.
Dangerously British.
It's about a band that's about to hit big in Canada.
Yeah.
Like they're starting their North American tour from the UK, and they're kind of like sexy young UK men. And they have a breakup at the very beginning of the movie over money, and then they all go off on their own comedic adventures, and then they eventually come back to get together. So it's structured very much like a Hollywood movie. In many ways, it's glossed up like a Hollywood movie, but it's just crap.
Yeah. So this is one of those things you would find on Netflix, like when nothing else good is on. Just one of these crappy, like 1.5 star movies.
There's got to be something better. But the next one I'm about to talk about does meet your criteria. John, you watched this with me. It's called Awaken. It was the first feature you watched. It was about like a bunch of people that wash up on an island. You should already know what I'm talking about now.
Oh, yeah. Why is this on the honorable mentions list?
Because I'm very cynical about this movie. Yeah. I start with the synopsis. A bunch of people, kind of like Lost, wash up on an island, and they're all like, where are we? The fuck's going on? What happened? And they find themselves as part of an intricate plot to something. Oh, yeah, no, I know. It was...
It was organ harvesting, wasn't it?
Yes, it was organ harvesting to save the child of... What's that actress's name? She played a robot in...
she was real B-worthy in this.
Yeah, but she used to be a big deal. She played a robot in in Blade Runner, and she was also in Kill Bill. What the hell was her name? Anyway, it's like a famous actress comes in. She has a child. They're gonna have their organs harvested to keep the child alive.
Yeah, the theory was like these people just kind of are held on an island until rich people need replacement organs, then they kill them to take their organs. That was honestly.
Are you guys applying the same gloss that I did earlier, where it seems like it has a plot?
No, that's a good description.
This was a real made-for-TV movie.
Because that sounds okay.
Well, it's not okay.
It wasn't okay. It was super boring.
Organ harvesting for rich people is not okay, and I'm here to speak against it.
They put a lot of effort into the action sequences, the bullets flying, and
why are there bullets flying? You don't want to damage these organs that you essentially want to harvest at some point.
That's a great point.
Looks like it. You're putting way too much thought into this.
Well, if you shoot them through the head or the neck or something, I think you can miss some major organs.
You could just see the poster. The poster is going to look a lot like The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And when it ends up on Netflix, a lot of people are going to watch it.
Yeah.
The movie was made very cynically.
Well, essentially, they are The Walking Dead because they're going to be harvested.
Well, there you have it.
Are they just normal people, or are they in like a persistent vegetative state?
Oh, no, they're normal people wandering the island, but they were chosen, you know, because they were
captured.
So it's more like Lost and less like The Matrix, where people are kept alive by machines in a big room.
It's quote unquote popular genre.
Popular genre film.
And we didn't even get to see the ending because it cut out.
That's right.
It didn't even end. So
Like the your equipment failed, or
No.
that's how it ended?
No, they didn't upload the whole movie.
Yeah, they only uploaded like they missed the last 10 to 15 or how many minutes.
Uh-oh. Well, that's why I didn't make it. Would you have passed it through?
No way. No fucking way would I pass it through.
Even with the ending, we wouldn't.
Nothing the ending could have done would have brought it around for you guys.
No.
Like, if they had 10 minutes left, could they have done anything to bring it around?
What do you think this is? Her composition? I look on their IMDb, and they have one movie after another that is made to look like another property.
Yep.
And as to, get you to accidentally buy
So
it.
they're the scary movie guys.
Catch on. Catch
of,
on film.
Amateur filmmaking.
Definitely. A couple of animated ones that I really liked. Food for Thought, Food for Life. It was like a documentary
About table to like farm to table.
Yeah, but it was like, it didn't even have like a singular vision. It was just about lots of things that are
Yeah,
better
it
for
just
food.
kept talking about something in food.
There's a lot of salt in food these days. Do you guys know that?
It was a masterclass in what not to do with documentary film.
Yeah, it was. They should show that and say, no, don't do any of this.
Completely unfocused. Oh, honorable mention. Us and Them. Now let's see if you
Refreshed
remember.
my brains because I remember the title, but
Us and Them is a 4-part anthology film in which
this disaster.
let me see what I can do here. This might have actually been my least favorite feature of everything.
Oh God.
It was basically 4 20-minute parts in which it followed around characters with just like a loose camera.
Yeah.
Like the camera just kind of like totally handheld, completely unintentional cinematography with narration overlaid. One of them was about like a businessman who can't get romantically involved with anybody.
Yeah.
Did I see this one? This
No.
sounds so familiar. Are you sure? You must have just described it to me or shown me some of the poorer pieces of it.
There was never any dialogue in the movie. Once it was done describing their story,
Yep.
it then cut to like twee music.
Yep.
And them just walking the fuck around for like 5 minutes every time.
I think I did see this.
And
I had to have seen this.
it was agonizing.
Which means you could have turned it off after 2 stories, right? Because that's 40 minutes.
Yeah.
But Frankie had already kind of set the precedent at that point. We're not going to stop.
We
the
don't.
movie.
No, nothing stops this train.
Nothing stops this train. Nothing stops the train.
Except the failed upload.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, only. Yeah. I'm not. I'm not going to reach out to them and say, "Please give me the rest."
I really got to know how this ends, you guys. Does the baby get its organ? We'll never know.
Hopeful romantic. I showed Aaron and Mike this one recently, and they were crying with laughter. It's 15 minutes. It's 2 bearded gay men.
Did I see this one?
I
This
think I
sounds-
must have shown you this.
I
Yeah.
watched this. Yeah.
It's very glossy, bright lights, wonderful colors, and it's the musical story of how they met, then how they broke up, then how one of them coped, then how one of them wanted to get back in.
That was one of the 2 films with a cameo by
George Takei.
By George Takei. There were 2 cameos by George Takei in 150 films.
Really?
Aaron and Mike told me, I don't know why they know this. I think it's from Howard Stern or something. They were like, he basically just will fuck anybody and be in their movie.
You guys, I have an idea for your next movie.
Yeah. Well, somebody's going to have to take one for the team.
Well, when we say anybody, is it specifically dudes?
I
Yeah,
think
totally,
so.
totally.
Yeah.
He's not going to have sex with you, Emily. No way.
I mean, I keep trying to get my career as a star fucker off the ground, and it's just not going anywhere.
I don't think you want to start in the C list.
You got to look beyond Takei.
Yeah, I'm really C-list. I'm with a guy who was in a short in the film festival last year with terrible audio problems. It is literally the C-list.
Well, you're not making a musical composition, are you?
But once again, it would have been really difficult to make. It was a 15-minute music video.
Yeah.
And
Lots of music, lots of competent music.
I would say very generic pop.
Yeah, but competent.
And the dude
mixed
sound. The dude could sing, but he was the opposite of a pop star. He's just a gay guy with a beard.
Did you feel any political pressure to include movies with gay themes? Because there was another one we saw that had like a lesbian couple that broke up for a while and then a few years later got back together when she found like her phone number in a book.
It was just too boring.
Something.
Well,
It's too boring.
once they set me on that track of like it's got to be good.
Yeah, then that kind of fell away, that pretense of trying to politicize.
But if it was okay, and then there was like a good political message, then I got kind of stuck.
Yeah.
Okay, so what about this one? Did this make the cut?
Oh fuck
No.
Okay, so you're describing it as the guy had a good voice, the music was good, the plot.
But it was baffling.
It didn't make any sense.
I've never seen anything like this before. I've never seen two gay beardos sing for 15 minutes. It wasn't to be seen.
No, it wasn't meant for it.
George Takei plays like his therapist, but he doesn't have any dialogue or singing parts. There's literally no dialogue. It's all singing.
Yeah, everything's sung.
Let's see, what else? A lot of handheld DSLR photography that goes in and out of focus strategically, or made to look strategic when it's not at all.
Yeah, accidental, like that somebody did that somewhere and everybody's copied it. I don't know where it originated from.
I think it looks like it's contemplative.
Yeah.
Like if it's you sitting here with the Afghan wrapped around you, and I kind of start wandering around you with like an out of focus DSLR, it makes it look like your psyche is complicated.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what a lot of people tried to do. I want to talk about this one.
All right.
Sugar Wonder Blues. These fucking guys.
Give me the summary. I don't know if I seen this one.
It's about two brothers who own a garage whose father died before the events of the film.
I have not seen it.
You said that this was a theme you saw a lot, was someone who was dealing with a death that had happened before the movie started.
That did happen a lot.
This was another
Very
trend.
good point. Yeah. There were a lot of movies that were about like
Coping.
Like when the movie started, it's somebody coping with a death.
Yeah.
A lot of movies about that.
Well, I think people just pulled that out of an event in their lives and wrote it and said, "Oh, this has never happened to anyone before."
But the problem is that when it's a 5-minute movie and everything happened off camera.
Yeah, and now you're kind of dealing with just the.
And then you just have like a sad woman walking around, like wiping her cheeks.
With out of focus photography.
Yeah, because your psyche is complicated.
Most of the time, the story they meant to tell wasn't in that movie. Yeah. It was in some other movie. Like I don't care that you're sad about someone dying if I don't know the person.
That's right. Like there was this one that comes to mind about bicycles.
Yes.
And the it starts off with, and you think it's going to be a documentary about bicycles in New York.
Yes.
And it like gives some statistics about death on bicycles, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of interesting. We're gonna have a little discussion about bicycle safety. Like, okay, but no, it's a narrative film, and the character has died in a bike accident. This woman, you never see her. You only see this man whose life is ruined by it, and it's like 20 minutes of him laying on the couch.
And he only finally gets over it because he's like disheveled.
Yeah.
And at the end of the movie, he's able to get like kind of trimmed up a little bit. And he's only ever able to do that because he visits where the bike crashed.
Yes.
And
It's bewildering because the interesting part of the story has already happened.
It's literally called Ghost Bike.
Yes, it is. It's called
Ghost Bike?
Yes, because she's a ghost on a bike. She's biking around New York, and yeah, the reason he says it seemed like it was a documentary is because the opening shots are like time lapse shots of New York City.
Yeah,
and they show actual statistics on screen.
Yeah.
Of bike accidents in New York City.
like, oh wow, this is gonna be like, oh, bike lane.
We're probably laughing at somebody whose spouse died on a bike because that's probably what he made that movie for.
Yeah, you're right.
Otherwise, why would he make that movie?
Yeah, and it's about his anguish and trying to present that as a
Well,
piece
do we
of
admire
art.
him more if he's just really moved by the plight of folks on bikes? Like, even if it doesn't touch him personally, just
No, I can't see it.
It doesn't seem likely.
I am diminished by the death of one person on a bike.
Oh, but Sugar Wonder Blues, yeah. So dad died before the movie started. Now they own a garage. The one brother is like the crazy brother, like the rebel brother, and the other brother is the straight-laced brother who doesn't understand why'd you have to go wayward? And and there's like the straight-laced brother has a wife who starts to fuck the other one. It's one of those movies where they think that they can sustain our attention with moody dialogue inside of one room for a very long time, and it doesn't work.
Is there an industry term for that? I've heard bottle films, like usually when it's taking place in one place.
Never heard that term.
One main setting. Okay.
There must be, but I don't know it. At the end, like they pull guns on each other, and it feels like it's out of nowhere, by the way. It feels like just kind of a standard family drama. In fact, it opens feeling a little bit like a comedy.
Yeah.
Because they're at like a children's party, and the dude's too sad to participate, and there's a little bit of comedy in that, and then trying to follow me here. So that's Sugar Wonder Blues, which of course I looked it up, and of course they've got a making of video on YouTube.
You can watch that.
And it's just like
check it out, folks.
Speaking of too sad to participate, you and I have talked about one of our favorite movie tropes, and that is sad women getting plowed. Basically,
Yes.
like if you're
we want to do a supercut.
we want to do a super cut of sad women getting plowed, because what this is when you see a woman in a feminist romp getting kind of depressed, and then later she, reclaims her sexuality or whatever.
Yes, good.
At the beginning of the movie, she is having sex and she's so sad. Oh, he's so oblivious to it, but she's
This
just
did happen a lot.
oh, and she's looking off at the walls like the guy is not going to notice. And there was some of that in her composition,
It was,
right? Did we
very much
did we
so.
see it in any of the other movies? Because it's become such a trope
Probably.
for.
Yeah, just like she's looking up at the ceiling and the dude is none the wiser that she's going through a feminist crisis.
I find it fascinating that there are themes that you're picking up throughout these movies. When I was listening to Dan Savage on a podcast talking about Hump, the film festival that he does, he says that sometimes there are just themes that you would never expect. Like one year, there were just like 5 spoofs of the same movie, of like Mission Impossible spoofs in a porn interpretation.
Which tells you that there was something sexual that happened in Mission Impossible that captured a few imaginations.
Yeah.
It points to trends.
And so when we talk about like a parent dying off screen, that cropped up a lot. But I was wondering if there were any other themes that you had picked up on.
I mean, I guess it depends. Like if we were screeners for a different kind of film festival. Like I remember always hearing that like every movie that got submitted was a zombie movie. Like I've heard that. I've heard that before.
We didn't see it.
Right.
I don't think there was only a small handful of zombie films in this.
Only one I can even. Oh well, one pure zombie movie, a couple of vampire. It's unfortunate to say, but if your budget is a certain level of low, you really can't abide a long runtime.
Yeah, you can't.
You like suddenly an hour and a half runtime for a low budget movie, even a good movie, is kind of like 2 hour 15. There was a movie called Winter that you and I watched, and Nina as well, which was about like a dad who was very homeless and alcoholic.
Very homeless. He was more homeless than usual. More homeless than you would expect, actually.
The child was he played young Magneto in X-Men First Class.
Yes, that's right.
That's what I mean by like these actors crop up. Like,
Yeah.
How do you get that? How do you get the mom from E.T. or George Takei?
Well, George Takei, you fuck him. The mom from E.T.
Right. You probably fuck her too. I mean, she's not looking as hot as she used to.
I think the mom from E.T. is a little kooky, and she's a little artistic, and I think she enjoys getting involved in that sort of thing. And I think the child actor from X-Men First Class wasn't all that famous to begin with, and needs to continue to work. And he has such a thick British or Scottish accent that he can't be in a lot of American movies.
Yeah, I mean, just give him a couple $1,000. I mean, play him union scale if they're union, and you can get him in.
And Winter, the movie I'm talking about this alcoholic dad who needs to reunite with the family, and there are skeletons in the closet, and they must work through them. One of those movies. We didn't pass it along, but well shot, well acted.
Yep.
It's not a very good movie. Bouquet. There was an End of the World movie we watched that was shot in Iceland.
Yeah.
I've got some confusion about what bouquet means, because I've heard EJ talking about it in our chat.
The beauty created by an out of focus lens in the elements that are out of focus.
That's about right.
And so, did you find that this movie really represented that?
No.
No.
But they did have a camera. The couple
There
had
was
a
a
camera.
camera.
For a movie called Bouquet, it was very tightly focused, and there was not really any bouquet in it.
It was actually the only movie I can think of that had. This was a working cut.
Yeah.
Where there were actual slates that said like VFX effects,
Yes.
Not complete, and things like that.
Can you ever imagine a situation where that's successful? Because that doesn't sound very appealing to a viewer.
It just wasn't quite ready yet. I mean,
Oh, okay.
presumably-
I thought that was part of their vision.
No.
Look, this movie was not cheap to make.
No, clearly. It was a lot of work.
This is one of those movies where it was a ton of work, and it will probably never get seen by
A lot of locations, a lot of on
Gorgeous,
location.
gorgeous
Yeah,
locations.
a lot of real Icelandic locations that you can't fake.
It's one of those movies where a couple is on vacation in Iceland, and then they wake up and there's nobody outside.
Yeah, and everybody is gone, and nobody knows why.
That's my favorite post-apocalyptic fantasy. It's when I just look out and there is nobody there, and I can go into all their houses.
Yeah, it's that. I Am Gangster, by the way, was that gangster movie that we were talking about, the skinheads. Oh, and by the way, Ghost Bike was actually called She Rides the Ghost Bike.
Oh, she rides the ghost bike.
Oh,
That's kind of giving away the whole film in a line.
Yeah, well, she is the one who died on the bike, ergo.
She rides the ghost bike.
The bike also died in the accident. There were no survivors. Because you have to be able to take your bike into the afterlife. So it's kind of like burying a cat with a mummy.
Yeah, a ghost can't ride a regular bike. Has to be a ghost bike.
Otherwise, you just look out and there's a bike riding by. Now that would be
What kind
crazy.
of debate is this? Over is a UK-made film that was about 6 or 7 minutes.
Yep.
And at first, you and I were like, "What are we watching?" And as it unfolded, we realized this movie is genius.
Yeah.
Here's what happened. I'm gonna spoil it. It starts with like a lot of cleanup, ambulances, cops, that sort of thing, at a house, and we're very far from it. We're at a big distance from it. Then it says like 2 hours earlier, and it's a little less cleanup. And then 2 hours earlier, and eventually it gets to the point where there's just a body outside of a house, and you realize that you're watching in reverse the cleanup of a body. Then it cuts to early in the morning. There's no carnage whatsoever. Everything's calm. And out of fucking nowhere, a body drops from the sky and falls to its death. And that's it. And it looks awesome, right? Then it says, like, it goes to titles. That's pretty much the end of the movie. It goes to titles. It says, in real life, basically, there was this cargo flight that had a man that had stowed away to escape his country.
Yeah, he's stowed away in the landing gear.
And they dumped it.
Yeah, well, no, because the landing gear, they were going to land in Heathrow. The landing gear came down, and he fell out of the thing and died.
And he just fell to his death in London or wherever.
Is that one that you passed on? Because I don't know that
we passed it on.
Yeah.
Yeah?
It had some struggles.
Interesting. Now, wasn't there a time period where movies shot in reverse were all the rage? I'm thinking of Memento or things that were visualized out of order.
This is much more minimalist.
Yep.
And it worked. For me, it worked. I thought it was really clever. There was one that I passed along called, I didn't tell you guys about this because it was actually just too good of a movie to talk about. And yet not so good that it was really worth talking about. But I did pass it along. It was called Super Bob. It's about a very average British man who gets Superman-like powers. And he ends up like becoming a corporate sponsor for everything, because he's just a normal guy that gets bought. And a Game of Thrones actress is the supporting role. She's like that wildling woman that follows around the little boring kids.
Yeah.
One last one. Superior Living.
Superior Living. It was a half-hour animated pilot for a television show, and it was embarrassingly bad.
But I think I saw that.
I saw some. I showed
at
some
least
clips,
part of it,
because it was not watchable.
It was so unfunny. But you know what was funny? The dude's website. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
We went to his website. He was a lawyer.
Yep.
Who's trying to make movies and animations. He spent a bunch of money contracting this out to be animated, and
it was so unwatchable.
And he all of his quotes on his website were about how awful he is and how awful his movies are.
Well, and that's something, like, most people are not going to admit that, because so many of these are a person's heart's work. That is what they poured their heart into and really thought they have created something. And sometimes it's a little hard to wrap your head around that someone out there really loves this piece that they made about a guy drawing windows in a barn or whatever.
I would totally watch his feature if it came out.
He was really invested in these characters. I think that one was Alex, but he was trying to make like short films about all of the characters in this other film that didn't actually exist.
Oh, that dude had a whole blog about how he was like, guys, I think we nailed it.
He did say that.
Pretty much said that. Final thoughts on this entire process?
I would definitely do it again. I thought it was such fun.
I would do it again too. I wish I had done more.
There are a lot in here that I don't remember watching at all. I don't know what the hell they are.
Well, and that's the problem, is that some of them are just so forgettable.
Do you remember 2094, Frankie?
No.
It's just on your list. I don't remember.
I remember
either.
some. I was on the treadmill a lot during these. That's the best thing. That's the best reason
You'll
to do
forever
it.
associate them with running.
Yeah, pretty much. Or walking. You know, we said that we'd watched all of them. That's true. That is accurate.
You were present for all of them.
However, there were some that necessitated a lot of pointless bathroom breaks.
I just gotta get away from this for a minute.
I'm gonna try to squeeze out another dump, just as an excuse. Or like Yeah, you start looking at your phone a lot.
Yeah,
like to the point
you
of
get out the laptop. You're kind of. I had some when we were watching them. I'd put it like on the second screen off to the side, and like I'd play a game.
All right, that was it. If we ever do it again, you'll get to hear another podcast like this. But otherwise, this might be it.
This might be it.
Well, let me ask you something. Are you only invited as a screener because you had your thing in the film festival last year? Is that even an option for this year upcoming?
They're trying to find people they trust to tell to be able to tell what a good story is, and so they chose me because they liked my movie.
Right.
Now, if I were to refer you guys, we could probably get you to do it.
Well, let's give it a try.
All right. You really want to do this?
Yeah. Yeah.
I can't stand the idea. All right. That's all.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.